stream is to be full and have a good breakfast. I didn't do that. I skipped it because I slept in a little bit. But you were just showing me. What were you showing?
Oh yeah.
This is good streaming content. You were showing me something, some kind of bread or something.
Well,
Could you pass it right through the screen? Because I need to look calories to get going.
Here it comes. But no, it's I took a picture of. It's just from there's another grocery store chain here. Well, there's several in the Netherlands called we would pronounce it Jumbo, but they would say Yumbo, I think. And these are just crispy cheese sticks, and they're flavored with that kind of cheese that you don't encounter so much in America, which is it's like bitter cheese. Like it's not even. I don't even know how to describe it. It's just like a very like imagine eating a block
Stinky
of
cheese?
Parmesan.
Is it the stinky smelly cheese?
No, it's just kind of like Swiss cheese. Like you know how Swiss cheese is like a very like different cheese taste than cheddar.
Okay.
Like
yes.
So it's that's like it has that, and it also has. I mean, this is probably manufactured in some like low orbit space factory, like all good stuff. But it clearly has whatever butter flavor has been engineered to taste like perfect butter flavor. They spray it all over. I think if I wrapped a paper towel around it.
Now, is it real butter or is it like some kind of like fake butter that's like manipulated with some chemicals to make it like it better, or is it actually probably in the Netherlands? Probably the real thing. Is that what? No, you froze up on me, Cote, or I froze up on you. Oh, we lost Cote. He'll be back though. I hope. Or maybe it's my end. I don't know. No, looks like I'm all right. Looks like I'm working. All right, he's back. He'll be. All right, we're waiting for Cote to return. I don't know, some type of network problem on his side. We're waiting. Hopefully, in any minute, he'll be back. Until then, talk amongst yourselves. Hmm. Cote's rebooting the internet, the entire internet, he said. So that will be exciting. Hey, Kote.
Hello. Hold on. Let me. Oh, here's what I need to do.
All right. Let me turn off the graphics here.
I don't know what's going on, Brandon. Lots of madness. But
All right.
I turned off the Wi-Fi, so I'm only using the hard internet.
Oh, well, you know how I like that. You know,
Yes.
I'm
But
all about the
I've got to
direct.
prioritize. I've got to prioritize. So wired is first, and
Yes.
then
Yeah.
Wi-Fi.
Then
Now,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In
what I'm always
preferences.
hope what I'm always hoping is that it's using both, so that things are twice as fast for me. Is that how it works?
No, it does not work that way.
No.
Doesn't. Now, are you like your mic? Now you sound different again on your mic. Is it just placement? Or is everything the same?
Oh man, I don't know how. I can check the levels myself.
Okay.
That's what I've learned last time.
Just
Yeah,
make sure are you on the right mic? I don't know. It
yeah.
almost
That's,
feels like maybe you're on your
I
laptop
think I
mic.
was on the wrong one.
Yeah, there we go. Because I was hearing squeaky chair. Now, those are the tones we like. All
All
right.
right, now I'll put in my Twitters that we're doing
Okay.
this,
Good.
and
It's
then we'll
back.
see what
Everything's
happens.
working. Always, you know what? Ethernet. Always use Ethernet. You know, we've
Well,
reviewed
no, I was using Ethernet before. It was just my whole home internet. I had to
Okay.
I had to go reboot the internet and the router, and then it was being fishy. Maybe they were chopping down a trunk and putting in a new trunk on the backhaul.
On the back hall. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
I was
sure
gonna
it's
say, I feel like your internet has been the best.
yeah.
So it's rare that the Dutch let you down like that. Whereas, I think I've had every kind of outage here where, power, internet, whatever. So
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely backhaul work.
all right. All right, all
I'm
right,
going
all
to put
right.
it in LinkedIn too. Do you think that's going to get us new fans?
Sure. Millions. Millions and
Bazillions.
millions.
Now, do you ever do this where you cut and paste between LinkedIn or Twitter and LinkedIn? And you're like, oh, now I've got to change my little at things.
Every Friday when I post the notes about this
Oh yeah,
episode being available, I learned that the syntax differences between LinkedIn and Twitter are very annoying.
yeah. You're pretty good at that, Brandon. Doing a good job. I don't know. Just saying inane stuff. Okay, let
All
me.
right. Now, that was a great pre-show. It wasn't very interesting for anyone that was watching it. It was a lot of I tried to talk for a while, but then I'm not a one-person streamer. Then I just said, "Hey, you'll be back." So,
Yeah.
but now we're a little compressed now. Now we got to get going because I
You got
need
a
to
hard stop, Brandon?
I do need to finish at the what will be 8 o'clock my time, which is
Okay.
I don't know, sometime by you. So it's an hour
Well,
from now.
hold on. Let me. An hour from now. Okay, good.
1 hour.
Good.
So we have 1 hour to record.
Okay. Okay. I
Which
in
seems
that
like wow, that's more than enough time. History has shown
no,
not always. No,
not at all.
not always enough
There's so
time.
many things to talk about and
Mhm.
such detail for
There
me having
is.
read so little. That's the way it always goes.
And then for everyone wondering, Matt Ray, I don't know, he's off this week. I don't know what's going on. Something's happening in Australia, so he's dealing with it. He'll be back, I'm sure, next week probably.
Probably nothing terrible. Let me organize myself here. I'm almost ready. Anyways, to close out, it has flavors of Swiss cheese and butter that is too real.
Wow.
Can't be real
If
butter.
anyone held out for that final review of that, I'm impressed. Good job. Yes.
Yeah,
A
I like to
good
close the loop.
20-minute delay in between the beginning of that story and the end. Fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
All right,
Are
I'm
you good
ready.
with these topics? You want? I don't know. I just kind of pick, like
No,
normal.
they're good. They're good. I think
Um,
I think we're cool.
okay,
We'll do
just
it.
2 ads, just like normal. And other than that, we're ready. I'm ready. I will see. Hold on. I'm recording. All right, everything should be recording on my end, so I'm ready when you are.
All right. Can you hear the baby crying?
Nope, not
Poor
yet.
baby. Okay, good. All right. Well, I've got a couple of things I want to just kind of clear out of the bucket here at the beginning. One, just apologies. I've got a recording for the podcast reboot, the Drunkard and Retireder. You should look that up, drunkardandretireder.fireside.fm. Check that out. Two, we're back from our vacation. We were in the southwest of France at a large house in Basque Country with it was great. A lot of fun beaches down there. It'd be wonderful to be there in summer. There's a lot to enjoy down there, and they have it's Esperia. I forget how you say the name of the pepper. It's probably in French, but there's like a red pepper. You know how you can get those Southwest peppers, Brandon, like on a
Hmm.
string that you can hang
Yes,
in
of
your
course.
kitchen, and you're always like, honestly, I'm not Tasty Meats Paul, so I don't know what the fuck to do with this.
Yep.
So it just
Yep.
looks cool.
That I can relate to
Yeah,
that too.
yeah.
Yes.
And so we got one of those. They're the good peppers. You can also buy them granulated, so you can shake them on. Now, what I want to say, this is advice I've been giving people. Let me adjust my microphone so they can make sure to hear it. Is now you probably later in life you're gonna have kids. You're gonna go on vacations when it's not gonna be summer, but the kids like to swim in a pool. You might not have a pool.
Yep.
So one of the main attractions when you go to a house is
Pool.
you want to get a pool that's heated
Yep.
because you got to be able to swim in it. Pool that's too cold to be in is not useful.
In fact, it's actually a negative because people like talk about they can't use the pool. So it's just like,
Yeah,
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 it's
yeah.
very,
And
but
then
go on. Yep.
people might fall in, whatever. So
Yeah. Hmm.
now, I picked this place because it had a heated pool. Now we have good success with that. But what I've finally learned, and my wife Kim has learned this, is I've learned a compounding thing here. One, you always have to ask them ahead of time, make sure the pool is turned on.
Yep.
Just, like, is it plugged in? You got to follow that. And usually they, sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no, and then they'll turn it on for you ahead of time because you want to have that first day. But what I learned on this trip is when they say yes, you should say, do you mind double checking that? Right? Like could you just take a picture or a video of it turned on and just I mean not that crazy, but because I'm not sure that it was actually turned on, and so and you know me, I always feel bad being the person like, I know you said that that this was turned on, but could you go check? And and it's fine, right? Like I understand if you're renting out a house, and someone's coming to stay in it in October in Europe, you need to make them understand that it's going to be cold, right? It's cold outside. The pool might be cold, whatever. You can make all these, say all that stuff. That's cool. But it's like, just go check, right? And
Yep.
then sure enough, as you can imagine, what happened is they were like, oh, we, I don't know if they said we should or we need to, but they said we've turned it up more, which is a
Oh,
good,
okay.
precise
Hmm.
phrasing. Also, it's not unlike in the Netherlands, the French are not like fluent in English. Totally cool, no problem there.
Right. So it's a little bit hard, little language barrier there.
Yeah,
Uh
yeah,
huh.
yeah. But they and then sure enough, the next day the pool was much warmer, still cold, but not cold. It was. We understand it's October. It's not going to be
Perfect. Right. Hmm.
Florida beach in July. But there you go. So that's what you got to do. Not only ask if it's turned on, you should really be like, could you double check? Because 70% of the time, the pool is not actually turned on. Whenever it
Now my
is.
question though is just, was it warm enough where like the adults did the swimming, or was it, because I think there's like different variations of a pool. It's like
Yeah.
I don't know, small children excuse me, small children seem to be like, you probably don't even need to turn on the heat, right? They just like, well, I would say not
Hmm.
small children, I'd
Hmm.
say like 10-year-olds. A 10-year-old is like, yep,
Yeah.
water's fine. Like, I mean, it's like as they break the ice to get in it, they're like, it's fine. You should get in, dad. Right there's that level. And then there's kind of what I would call, at least in my house, it's sort of like where I will get in, but my wife will not. Like I'm my threshold's a little bit. And also
Yeah.
too, there's sort of like, hey, someone needs to get in there and, and play around and like have some activity with the children. And then finally it's like almost like a bathtub. That's where my wife likes it. And then she's like, oh, I
Oh,
can get in now. She's like, it's like, 85, 90 degree. It's
the
like, well, yeah, I
bathtub.
mean,
Yeah.
it's like barely even refreshing.
Hey,
So
bring some
like what
shampoo.
level, like was everyone in the pool at one time? That's what I
Well,
want to
okay,
know.
okay. So the first day was your 10-year-old jumping into like ice. It was
Hmm.
that, like and my daughter was in there for a while and it was a little too cold, but then my son Cormac, he was like, "Oh, it's very cold," and then stayed in for an hour, right?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, yes, right. Hmm. So that's
And
like if you were doing recruiting Navy SEALs, 10-year-old,
yes.
the 10 year
Yeah.
old age group can swim in any amount of cold water. But go on.
That might be the ideal age for military recruitment. The mind is very pliable. You're almost at probably near. I don't know if at 10 years old your body can retain physical like fitness, right? Like
Right.
maybe, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's not ideal.
Mentally,
Obviously,
they're in the right
immoral.
place mentally. They're probably not in the right place physically. But you're right.
Yeah.
You're approaching that. But yes, they have
Okay.
the pain
So
tolerance of coldness is very high at that age.
yeah, obviously, child soldier is not a good idea. That's not cool. But uh, as far as unheated swimming pools in October in Europe, perfect. And then the next day, it was not quite. It was not at bathtub level. Kim never got into it because she didn't even test it out. But it was fine for me. It was at Barton Springs level, right?
Okay.
Like,
All right. So
and
refreshing. We'll call it like a
yeah, yeah,
strong,
yeah,
crisp,
yeah.
refreshing. So, all right. Well, good. Well, that's,
I, I I feel like if I hadn't grown up with Barton Springs and learned how to conquer Barton Springs, I would not have gotten in the pool. But I know that what you need to do is just dive in and then just give yourself a few minutes of like, I can't breathe. And then your body will take care of it. And then your
I think it's
problem,
amazing how few, like, how often adults in this broad statement, like, just they all know that, but no one, like, I agree with you. If, hey, you're doing it, just jump in, get it over with. Right. Like,
yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
like, I'm amazed. I see so many different adults like do the painful, like 1 foot in, two
Oh
foot in,
no,
and
you
it's
can't
just
do
like
that. You
takes
can't.
30 minutes. It's like, the answer here. Just stop, just jump
You
in,
gotta,
get it
you
over
gotta,
with.
you gotta do what all of us hirsute people with band-aids do is you just rip it off. You just like this. This is gonna hurt. Let's just do it. But yeah,
Just jump in.
but then you unfortunately have the opposite issue with Barton Springs. Well, not the opposite, but like in a situation like this, what you learn is that any part of your body that is not in the water is cold.
Yeah.
And then once you're in, is weird. Whereas that, in July in Texas at Barton Springs, that's not a problem. It's, anyway,
All right. So the lesson of the moral of the story is here: always find a heated pool.
yeah, exactly. Now I had a third thing to go over, but I've totally forgotten what it was.
That's perfect. All right. So that's what is that? 29. I think there's a whole like, I don't know, maybe it's a parental market of like when people list properties and stuff, it's like we have a pool, it's heated, but we actually mean you can use the heater and it's also really, it's all set up. Like we know you're gonna want to do it. Whereas like people, I always feel like people have the heated pool and they're like, well, we don't really turn it on. It's expensive, right? And it's
Yeah,
it's like that kind of thing. So I'm with you on that. So
yeah,
well,
yeah,
for everybody else, if you're watching along with us here today, and you want to learn, I don't know, probably don't want to learn anything about swimming, but you want to learn stuff about high tech and things like that, go see our sponsor at CBT Nuggets. They'll hook you up with all kinds of training. So there we have it. And all
I,
right.
I, I bet I bet at the Airbnb place and Booking.com, they're like, what if I hope they've had this idea that you could put like an Internet of Things thermometer in a pool, like and to kind of like
That'd be
check in
cool.
and monitor. And that way when you're renting, you could see trends and like, that because really that was like that's kind of our primary criteria. What do you must know what's the metric? I mean, it's not your primary metric. Your primary metric is like price ultimately, right? Like in the sense of like, if it costs $10,000 a night, we would not rent this. So that's
Right.
like, and then the other one is just like, space. You don't want to be in like a studio apartment, right? But then it's like I don't know, whatever that secondary primary metric is the pool. That's really what you got to check in on. Make sure that it's good.
No, I agree. Especially, I mean, well, you have 3 kids, so it's even more important, right? It's like that's going to be like the main activity, right? I mean, especially when everyone's just hanging
Yeah.
out, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm with you. I think heated pools, though. I feel like the best ones I found are the ones like I don't know if you ski at all or been to like ski resorts, but they're like, yeah, it's like, yeah, you're gonna want it. And you're gonna want it hot because it's skiing. So it's like, yeah, so that's the place where it's like turned up. You get in, and you're like, oh, this is nice. Everywhere else, though, like a heated pool by a beach is always cold. I don't know why. I just think that people are like, it's fine. Just swim cold. It's
Yeah,
like I don't
it's
want to
because it
swim
take
cold.
it takes like 2 days to heat it up, and
Yeah.
just being cheapskates, whatever. Just like, yeah, we found that food is expensive too, so
It's always good. All right. Whenever you're ready, let's get going.
All right. Well, I haven't had a chance to read in detail about all the announcements from our longtime supporters and friends, Datadog, but they had a conference, and I think they've gone full GitLabs. I was scrolling through their blog posts, and I was like, wow, they really just do it all. and they're just documenting every single little thing that they do here. Now, I didn't go check to see how many pillars they have in their Parthenon, but I think based on just the announcements in their blog posts, they got a lot of stuff. They got, an all ins here. They got some, I don't know if they call it synthetic transaction monitoring anymore, but they've got some tracing in there. Looks like you could a priori and a posteriori like build in your tracing. They've even got some funnel analysis for your conversions to see what Johnny Lee Gen's up to. All sorts of things in there, and I think my first thought was I remember seeing them originally back at some DevOps days way back when, and thinking like, oh, that's a funny little company, right? Like with their dog. Like what company ever puts the word dog into their company name? But man, they sure have they got a lot going on over there, Brandon. And it looks like there's even like highly specialized things like managing databases and kind of. I mean, everyone manages databases, but like there's a lot of they've been working on a lot. They must have.
Should we say? I kind of think of it like, have they gone? I don't know who the beginning company so this may be wrong, but I'm gonna go like they've gone like the full Tivoli, right? Like,
yes,
I feel like Tivoli was the ones that's kind of started off all the systems management. I don't know. There's some patrol people at BMC, some people over in Australia started patrol, and I don't know. There's probably some stuff even before mainframe. But where I'm coming from is like the idea of like, oh, we're just gonna have this thing that monitors stuff, and then over time, right? You just add more and more, like used to be called agents and monitors, whatever you want to call them, right? So yeah, I feel like this is the and of course many companies, we've worked at some Cote, right? Like this is where you always end up, right? This is the trajectory you're going on, right? So they added, for example, one of the announcements was network device monitoring. It's like, you can see where they got to that like pretty late in the game, but they're like, yep, we need, that's your old friend SNMP. That was one of the things that was in the announcements. And I was like, oh, wow, this is like the real maturing. This is like the full on Tivoli. Like we now have almost everything you could possibly monitor. So, so I think it's just fascinating to watch these systems get, and obviously Datadog is, in my books, rating number one, right? They're, they've done it. They've sort of taken over the systems management world. So this is sort of them asserting, if you will, this kind of going through all these things. It's like, yeah, we're number one. And now everyone's coming from Datadog, right? Whereas at one point, Tivoli was number one. Everyone came for them. And then we went through many different iterations of people trying to displace them. But Datadog has clearly won. So I just, kudos to them.
There's definitely a large bulk of functionality that they got going on there. I was thinking over the vacation and recently, I've been eating so much. One, you stop weighing yourself because you don't like the result, and then two, in order to weigh yourself, you think like, hey, it would be inconvenient because it's so hard to get these pants off and back on that there's probably and so you need some new pants for all the stuff that is in here. There's even iOS widgets that you can add here so you can monitor your things, which I always like, are there actual sysadmins who are like, monitoring their stuff from their phones like that? That seems like, I mean, I guess that seems like the dream, right? That you're on the beach or you're skiing in a well-heated pool and you're just kind of glancing over at your iPad at the widgets that are on there, see what you need to do. That's I guess people do that. Right?
Yeah. Well, I think there's always a lot of stuff. I mean, in the end, right, when you sort of work up the food chain of all the systems management features, eventually you kind of get to all of this. You're like, well, we just got to have everything. And I think that's kind of where they're at now. The part that caught my attention is, we've sort of inadvertently been having a little, as I like to say, it's like, well, what's the most important feature of any platform in an enterprise, but systems management in general is export data. And now, because Datadog has had so much success, pretty much everyone's coming for him now, right? They got everyone has created a slide about how they're going to be the next Datadog, right, in their pitch decks. And so what they've all done, though, is they say, well, we're going to do this new thing called observability, right? So that seems to be the way everyone is going to try to compete with it. So Datadog has introduced observability pipelines, which I'm just calling, it's the mother of all export data, right? That's really all it is. It's basically, we can take the data from anywhere and in fact, maybe we'll get Matt Ray's take on this next week. It's sort of like do some type of transform on it, do some type of normalization, and then we'll pipe that data to wherever you want it to go. So any data sync you want. So it can be anywhere. And so one, we always cover the most important things here at Software Defined Talk. One, I want to say this slide that they used, and I'll put it in the show notes. It may have the most purple and the most purple gradients ever used on one slide. It's just, as someone posted in the chat, it's just almost a sea of purple. So I like their commitment to the brand. It's like, even if you can barely read it, everything was purple. At no point where they're like, well, we could go with a contrasting color. Nope, just another purple gradient. So that, of course, we love. But then looking at it, it's interesting because I think this is sort of the ultimate response to observability. It's just like, hey, we can create an observability pipeline, which is essentially just like pipe all the data that you want to, in any format you want, to wherever you want, right? So you can kind of see their response. It's like, hey, we do that too. We have all of that stuff. Now, the question I have here is a little bit on the analysis. I think they're sort of leaving some of the analysis to other tools, but it seems like a nice move by them. It's sort of like, we want to make sure that we're collecting all the data and that we can put it where you want, because that's, I think, where the money is. The money is in the data collection, although it's a little bit boring. That's really what you want, because if you don't have the data, then someone that comes in with another tool is like, well, you see, we have this great reporting, but they usually leave it to the customer to figure out, well, you have to just export all your data into this. And it's like, that could be a high hurdle. But I think in this case, Datadog has fixed it. So that's what I'm watching. It's like, okay, observability is kind of the way they're being attacked. And I think this is a nice response by them.
Yeah, just to yeah, that seems like a good take. It's because it seems like, as always, the problems in systems management are, as you were saying, getting the info, getting the data, and then and the other one is knowing like how to respond to it, like, which, that's a deep well. And then there's also storing it, which is a problem, and then you got retrieving it, and then of course you're going to need iOS widgets. So those are your 5 classic problems to deal with. And I guess, then it is like, if you are the central store for things, you need a way of as you like to say, exporting the data and transforming it as well, so that it's easy to integrate with everything else. Because it's one thing to like as the ability to download all of your photos from Flickr shows, if you've ever tried to do that, it's one thing to like be able to get the raw bits, but it's another thing to actually be able to do anything with it, right? And like, so Flickr will download these images that have none of the metadata written into the image, and they all have the same date, created date, and whatever date. But of course, being programmers, they were like, we just have a JSON file that has the same name of the image, that has all the metadata in it. So have fun with that, right? And like, so it's. I mean, that's a very consumery example, but like, it's if the data is exported in a fashion that makes it instantly usable by these other tools, then that's much better.
Well, and this is what I think makes it so sticky. Why Datadog? Why I think it's such a good move is like, if you are the origination of collecting all the data, so they got to have you. This is kind of back to the agents. Why Tivoli and other things always existed, even well beyond maybe their prime, was just like, hey, it's getting all this data. So that makes you really, really sticky. And then 2, in this case, it's the observability pipelines, but I'm just going to call it like, really, really configurable export data. It's like every time someone writes, kind of a workflow to get data, transform data, and then put it somewhere, right? Your, if you will, your switching cost goes up exponentially, right? Because it's just one of these things, like, you have to have it forever, right? No one will ever want to get rid of it. So I think it's a good way to really embed yourself into and kind of defend against everybody that's going to come along, whether it's observability or something that's the next thing in systems management. I'm sure it's already emerging, but some new thing is like, well, actually, you don't want to just collect the data and do observability. You want to do this other thing, right? And then someone's going to say that, and then but you're going to say, well, that's fine. Well, we have all the data. We can just pipe that there. So I think it's a really defensible way, I guess, to keep your business, growing. So that's why I'm impressed. But I did want to ask you, the other thing is, because you kind of alluded to, and it's like, I'm reading this book that's kind of interesting. It's called The Success Equation. Bad name, but it's basically untangling skill and luck. And so, sort of, I swear off these business books. It's not so much a business book, but this one sort of goes, it's kind of like building on the halo effect a little bit, and sort of like, well, what, how much what determines luck, right? Like, what are the things and how do you measure it? And it's got me thinking a lot about Datadog, about much of this functionality has existed in other places. So we go back, I was just close to this space whenever this thing started 5-7 years ago, whatever. And there were a bunch of people, I've worked at some, and that were sort of like all kind of competing for it. And so, to your thing about the dog, it's like, the features I think were always well known, but I was like, I don't know, maybe it is like the purple, the brand, the dog. And one of the things they tell you about in this book is just, like a slight advantage. So if we were launching something new, any kind of product, like even like a song, right? Even if we have some slight advantage, like a group of people that are maybe just slightly more interested in our song versus someone else, right? Is that it can have this compounding effect. And so that's got me thinking about, like, I don't know, maybe, Datadog sort of, hit the SaaS-based systems management at the right time, right? They seemed, I don't know how they did it exactly, but they seemed to get some good mind share very quickly with like a very influential crowd. And then I do think something about the brand, like something about, I don't know if it's playfulness or just something else just was kind of different. And I think, like, if you will, if you just say like at the very beginning of this race, maybe that was a tiny advantage. But now you look at all the companies that either have gone out of business or are worth significantly less. Like they've now built it into like whatever this $30 billion behemoth. And I don't really think it, as much as I like to, you always want to think that it's about the products. The product itself is good, but it's not, when I look at everything else, it's not that different. So I don't know. I just always back to like, to your thing about the dog, like maybe it really was the dog. Maybe that had like more an effect on this than like, if you will, end user monitoring.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I didn't know you sworn off business books. So that's the discussion we should have at some other time. But yeah, I mean, I think the summary is just like, yeah, there's a whole bunch of, they're not random things, but there's just a whole bunch of unexpected, unplanned for things that operate over 10 years that result in success. Right? And the joke being like, yes, the overnight success that just took 10 years, right? Like, but unfortunately, I don't really know Datadog that well as far as their feature set, let alone competitively. Like I might have back when I was an analyst, but I think to generalize in the systems management space, I mean, to reprise like, one of my favorite, maybe even our theories of just like systems management tools just expire. Like, and I think that's largely a function of the business that runs them. And the business that runs them, they just find, I think, this is all theory. At some point, when a systems management business is successful, there are diminishing returns for updating and adding new functionality for new types of infrastructure and applications and things like that, right? It's sort of like if you were the big incumbent from whatever the last period was, and let's say the metaverse actually becomes a real thing, and then you're like, I don't know, that's not going to be real. People still have to monitor Windows machines, and like you don't put in at the right time the effort into whatever the systems management for the metaverse is, right? Like we can monitor 360 degrees of users' perception, not just 80 or whatever. And so like eventually that just, it's like negative compound interest, to use a weird metaphor. Like eventually it just catches up with you, and you just like your reputation is eroded because you're the old weird thing. And the only way, I'm sure you maybe have done some of these demos or been part of them, but the only way that when these older systems management companies seem to be doing anything new is they get a really good sales engineer who just like knows how to cobble together some crazy ass thing that makes it look like something has happened in the portfolio. And like, I think in this space, that in systems management, that happens a lot just because there's no good business behind it, right? And then so what that does is the brand, even if you manage to catch up and rename yourself, like the brand that you have, people just assume it doesn't do good. It doesn't work. And then I think the other thing that has happened recently, which I guess it happened in a different way, but it happens in all the areas of systems management, is the sysadmins or the operations people. There becomes a new type of operations people that aren't like the previous existing type, right? So I think, there used to be mainframe admins, then Unix admins, then there were Windows admins, Then somewhere in there was like netware, internet-y kind of admins, and then there became VM admins, and then running parallel to that was like Linux admins, and now, not that there's a profusion of them, because as we covered at some point, there's Gartner estimates there's only like 5 to 10% of enterprise applications run on Kubernetes, right? So it's very small. But now you have this new type of admin kind of sort of emerging that like runs whatever mobile app backends there are, like whatever cloud stuff is.
Yeah, and I think you did
right?
throw SRE in here at some point, right? Like SRE
Yeah,
sort of
yeah, yeah. Right.
emerges, and then I think as that emerges, I think that goes hand in hand with observability, right? And
Right,
that
right.
goes hand in hand with Kubernetes, right? All of that is
So
very related.
so this is the other thing that you have coming in. Boy, we need a slide with, we could use what the
We're gonna
PowerPoint
use
clip
as
art,
long as we
smart
can
art with the
use.
arrows.
I just prefer that if we can use a color other than just purple.
Yeah.
I think we have the whole spectrum to work with. Go on.
I don't know if these would be forces or pillars or what
Right.
we're driving at here, what kind of flywheel we're creating, but the construction of a flywheel. But then what happens is you have all these things together, and you've got a new group of people who don't go to the old brand because they assume it doesn't work, even if
or maybe they've been exposed to it and like been frustrated by the tool. Go on.
Right. I was going to say, even if, let's say, you were one of these old companies and you went private so you could focus on like adding in the technology, you did some tuck-in acquisitions, you could be great technologically wise, but people just don't trust that you do anything good. So you've got that effect. And then, back in the negative thing, like you probably, as the older company, haven't invested in this. And then you got the new company that has a brand, and they're also, by virtue, whether they're like newly IPO'd or they haven't IPO'd yet, they can just like, they have the flexibility to like do a bunch of wacky new things, like put iOS widgets in there, right? Like they don't have to like justify things in the same amount of nauseating detail that you do in a large company, right? Where you've got 4 months ahead of your FY 2023 financial planning for allocating funding to a new project. You just like got to figure out what the new templates are that corporate finance has sent out, and you're like, I don't have that Excel macro to generate that those Harvey balls, and so you're spending all your time doing that instead of learning about that. Like in the new iOS version, there's going to be a widget that you can add on iPhones, right? So I mean, all that stuff comes together in this space to be like, man, it's really hard if you're an older, successful company. I mean, this is a different version of like disruptions stuff, kind of. But I think on the other hand, it also means that like you gotta like you're almost like playing like strategic parkour of just like, if you're in a Datadog or other situation where you're just like constantly jumping around and trying to figure things out, and you've got to like have a very long-term run at skipping around and just chasing after everything, much like a dog would, and until like eventually you bite onto the car, and you got to figure out what to do. Trying to stick with this dog metaphor there. But yeah, I think the other thing that, once, to your point, like once you see a feature, an announcement dump like this, you're like, oh, okay, good. The dog has figured out how to drive the car now. Like it seems to know what it's up to.
Good. I think it's good. That's a good. It's a good on bring the dog metaphor to a close there. I like it. All right, so let's see, what time was this? I'll quickly write down. So we did a little Datadog talk or dash, and then it's what 50.
What do we got?
What are we talking? Oh yeah, everybody needs to go see our friends at StrongDM, and helps support show and also help secure your environment. So here we find that link. Yeah, I don't know, the Datadog thing. It is sort of a fascinating little. I don't know. I guess I'm fascinated by it. Like that would be what I would. It's kind of in this book. I keep thinking they keep talking about these very popular examples, but I'm like, yeah, but like I wonder why Datadog won. I wonder what's the thing behind that.
Yeah. That's what's unsatisfying about a lot of those airport business books, is they're just like they.
But the stuff about luck, that I think, I don't know, I'm probably not doing that great job. It's interesting when someone tries to quantify and be like, hey, here's like, and I really think that idea about like a slight, like he talks about it in music, just like imagine two songs are very equal in sound and everything, and just like they're just kind of like the same, but like if you give like one song just a tiny advantage of like a little bit more airplay, like that can lead to an exponential change, like difference in
For
win. And I
sure.
think about that business. It's like
Yeah.
the difference between being played like 1,000 times and 1,000,000 times. It's not that much. Like the songs could be equal, but just, you know, you just,
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know. It feels weird.
Well, you know, I don't know if you see this, but you know, when I try to hustle people looking at my little media creations, it's
Uh-huh.
just like one person who's got like a more engaged Twitter
Yep.
following than I do tweeting something makes it
Yep.
be like instead of like 100 views, now it's like 2,000, and it's
Yeah.
just
No, I
like
think you're right. All social media. I think you're right. The kind of the power law of social media. So it's
and
cool.
the crazy thing is that like, and I complain about this a lot, is a lot of the people in, you know, places I worked over the years who like should be part of their job to like amplify things. They don't. It's very
Yeah.
annoying. But what are you gonna do?
We could do.
What are you gonna do?
All right.
So
We can,
you have 27 more minutes.
yep. Yep.
Okay.
So I don't know, kind of do what you want here.
Do
We
you
can do
know
some.
about VS Code? Do you know what that is?
Well, I was
I
gonna
mean,
do like I think we could do some M&A. Like I want to grade these M&A acquisitions because we can do that
okay.
quickly, and then I can talk, and then we talk about that a little bit, and then it doesn't have to be a
I
long segment.
because
We'll see how it
one
goes.
day I need to figure out like what the deal with VS Code is. I mean, I know what it is, but I don't know why it's like an overnight success, so to speak. So that would be
All
fun
right, we can
to.
talk about that too. All right, yeah, just lead us into this
Okay.
little set of stuff. We'll get all of it. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I was just thinking something. Well, you know, well, you know.
You
That's what
said.
my memoir of my professional life should be called. Well, you know. Uh,
All right, reset. New
all
new,
right, all
new
right.
pickup.
Speaking of business books, I've been thinking recently it'd be fun. I mean, obviously, it would be fun to take some kind of sabbatical. I think sabbatical, you're not supposed to work, but you know, in going over the, you know, you mentioned whatever that. What was the name of that book?
Okay, I already moved the title off. I'll put it in the show notes. Success factors, I think is what it is.
Success Factors. Yes. So you mentioned that book, and you know, I it would be. I've been thinking recently. I was talking with someone about this. I have no idea how Microsoft turned itself around, right? And how now it is sort of like in our realm at least. I don't know how like, I mean, I guess my kids play Minecraft, so Microsoft's killing it in their eyes, and people must like Xbox. I don't know what in the consumer world, but in our infrastructure space, they're like one of the. I mean, they're consistently ranked above Google, right? So like, there's that, and that's. I have no idea what happened at Microsoft internally, and I was talking with someone the other day, and they're like, I think I wonder the same thing all the time, and I have no idea. So that would be like, I would enjoy that case study going way below. Well, we came in and we decided that a renewed focus on customers and discovering and blah 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 blah. It's sort of like, you know, anytime people go over their high level vision, it's like, well, the key to our success of turning this around is we decided to start using tools that worked. And it's like, yes, thank you. Thank you. Good to know. But really, I mean, there must have been a lot more going on to change how that happened. So that would be, you know, I'm always interested in these more detailed case studies of not even success, but like getting out of a tight spot. Like that's what's always, because that mixes together our two our Halo problems, right? Is like, start with failure, right? Like, don't tell
Right.
me how someone was birthed as a success. Tell me how someone was an utter failure and then got themselves out of that jam, right? Like, so anyways, that, and then I think as we were just talking, like Datadog would be interesting to profile. Like what, like not that they started with failure, but it'd be another good case of like a long running, very competitive area, like we were just thinking about. And then we need a third case to write about. But that would be I don't know, that would be a fun little book to write, or a study, maybe a 90-page thing. You got 30 pages on each. Just kind of
I like
collect
it.
that
Keep
stuff
it short and
together.
quick. Yeah, like it. Uh-huh.
Now, speaking of keeping it short and quick, it looks like the people who want to do the opposite of that. I only read this shallowly, but it looks like the old Sequoia Fund, one of the biggest VCs, has converted itself to a mutual fund. Is that like, I read a long blog post, and it basically said, I had no idea where they were going with this, because usually in the tech world, when people talk about a decade not being good, they mean that it's too long, and they would like a shorter window. But I think what they announced is that no longer is Sequoia going to be bound by a 10-year investment horizon, and instead they're going to have an unlimited year investment horizon. Could be 20 years, could be 50, doesn't matter. Like they're more into the long-term investment, and they're even going to hold after IPOs. They'll hold stocks, if that makes sense. And solid case made with Square that like now they're worth like however much money. And I was reading that, I was like, now I understand why Twitter is so messed up, because the CEO has this whole other company that is like
He's got a
head over
second job. His side
this.
hustle's a whole nother job. Yeah.
Yeah, like Twitter is just the CEO's side hustle. Like this other company is actually like the cash cow and the money maker. And like, yeah, it's they probably both have the same magnitude of impact in their respective industries. But anyways, but it does seem like, I mean, I'm no Matt Levine, but it seems like what they have described is basically a mixture of like a hedge fund and a mutual fund. I mean, I guess hedge funds have people who buy into hedge funds have like a limited cycle too, right? Like it's a period that you're
No,
investing
not
in.
necessarily. A hedge fund can just make up its own rules. I mean, the big deal here, I guess, is that the venture fund, as previously created, was always, it lasted 10 years, right? You got your money back, and then that's kind of how it was always done. And so this whole announcement, though, I do think it's sort of like it's it's one of these things. Like, I think it is, if you work at Sequoia, or you're in, like, if you really are a limited partner that invest in these people, like, it's good to know. But to us, I mean, I think for everyone else, it's sort of like, it's just sort of like irrelevant. Like, it didn't really, like, I don't think any of us were really like, oh
Yeah.
wow, the fact that a hedge fund, and A16Z did something similar maybe a year ago. They just basically changed, and what they have to do is, it's a big deal to them. They changed their regulatory filing. So basically, they are like, hey, we're not just going to be a
Yeah.
venture capital firm anymore. We're not going to play just by those rules. We're now going to play by, like, the full, hedge fund financial rules, which is fine. But I just think it's interesting to see a VC fund like make this announcement, because, like, if you pitch to a VC, right, they're always going to be like, what's defensible? Why is this new? Why is this different? Like, I think everyone else is doing this. And so, like, when I read this from Sequoia, I think you can apply the same logic. It's like, aren't there a million hedge funds that already do this today? If this was a problem before, didn't I already have a million places I can invest? Like, I can always buy stocks on the stock market anytime I want. Like, that was never a problem for me as a limited
Yeah.
partner. If I want to invest in Square pre-IPO or after the IPO, I can do it. So it's funny for, it's just, and I think it's just instructive to, like, the people that evaluate companies all the time and ask, like, the hard questions fall into the exact same trap, right? Like, this is a very internal announcement. Like, this is very exciting for the people that work at Sequoia. I think for anyone outside Sequoia, it's just like, whatever. It doesn't really matter. And it's not, me or you, like, we're no more likely or less likely to say to ourselves, we should go pitch Sequoia, right? Like, if we could have pitched Sequoia, we would have done it before. And in the future, we could do it. But all this talk, right? And it's just like, it doesn't have the founder first. It doesn't have, like, why does it matter to the external world? It's just a regulatory filing for the people that work at Sequoia, and it's not that exciting. But I just think it's funny, because that's the kind of feedback I think they would give you about a startup that you're pitching that they're not interested in, right? So clearly, I
Yeah.
think if you walked in this room, like, if I walked in the room at Sequoia and I was like, this is crap, there's a million mutual funds, there's a million hedge funds, why are you making this such a big deal? You need to, like, actually release something that people want. Solve a problem that people actually want, that there's not a million. They would yell at me. They would tell me how I don't get it, how I'm stupid, I don't understand venture capital. But, like, it's the same thing going on here. It's exactly the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of related to that. You got 1,000 different things that could go right or go wrong, for that we were talking about earlier. And in that, like, on the side of someone talking about something like this, telling you you're crazy and you should get out of the room, is they believe they have those 1,000 things, and you just don't appreciate that they have the mixture of it. But yeah, it is. Like what you're saying makes me think it is. It's evidence of, like, the weird thought leadership sort of nature that VCs have in our world, right? And the general world as a whole, right? Like, in that, like, these people who invest in tech companies get some kind of outsized godliness to them, right? And they get on the cover of Time magazine and things like that with the infamous picture of everyone in a Google glasses, right? It's and as we talk about every now and then, right? Like there's maybe that was in Wired instead of Time, but whatever. Like the and you see the A16Z people play around with this a lot, right? Is like the brand, even almost like in the sense of like a big expensive fashion company, right? Like they could just say like, blah blah startup, an A16Z company, right? And that just adds all this goodwill and brand value
Right.
to it, which is very like that's a whole other like channel of attention that they have, and why maybe there's announcements of stuff
Yeah, it's
like
a
this.
strong signaling mechanism, right? And
Yeah,
that's really what's
yeah.
going on. It's just like
And
another.
versus like their actual customer base, which like is an entirely different, very small group of people, right? The being institutional investors and like all people with huge chunks of money to invest in things, and it's almost like like those two types of marketing efforts are so incredibly different, and it is I guess like this kind of announcement is important for your real customers, but it's sort of like it just gets picked up by the rest of the tech world because like we pay too
Because
close
it's
of
Sequoia,
attention
right?
to
And we
it.
should pay attention. But I do think
Yeah,
like
yeah,
this, like to me, like I guess it's back to the product launch. Like a venture capitalist would walk in and always want to critique a product launch about like what you didn't do and how it was wrong, blah, blah. And it's like, so if you want to see how they do it, this is a product launch. So you can go see, this is what Sequoia did. This was their product launch. And like, to me, it's just massively inside out, right? They miss like all the things. Like they could have started, because they start with like such the long story and the 10 years. And like, none of that matters. Like the announcement should be, hey, we've now made it Sequoia accessible to anyone that wants to invest with us. Like, for example, they could have created a exchange traded fund, right? And be like, it's out there if anyone wants to do it. And then to say like, we've been investing for a long time. And then you could just like almost in the footnote, you'd say we've made some changes so now that anyone that wants to buy the Sequoia Index Fund can do it. And you're just going to invest along, just like you invest along the Harvard endowment. You're going to be there, right? Or something that's really meaningful to the other person. Or say it's like, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Entrepreneur, hey, we've made it easier now than ever for you to raise money because we have maximum flexibility to give you money to do things. We're not constrained by anything. And here's why that's so
yeah.
great. Here's the thing. And all of that stuff. But instead, the story is like, we used to do it this way and we had a lot of success. And then we overcame the regulatory filing issues. And now we've changed ourselves. And it's just, it's the kind of stuff that gets critiqued all the time on a product launch. It's like you're not talking to your end customers. And so to me, it's just like, yeah, Sequoia, and to your point, it's like they're just like everybody else. Like we all fail at this. We all fail at doing a launch and not quite reaching to the end customers. It's just hard, right? Because it's very hard to do. So to your original point, it's like these people are in essence, they're just like all of us. They fall in the same traps all the time. So just think about that when you're talking to all of these people and you're pitching your VCs. Like they're just like you. If they were doing the product launch for your company, they'd make a lot of the same mistakes, even some ones that were worse than the ones that you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like the logical conclusion is like you should just do what everyone else does, an IPO. Like that's like if you want to like focus on just like long-term value of what a company is doing, even if it's a VC firm, then like I think the way to do that is you just become a public company yourself, and then people just invest in you, and you just explain what the business is and how it generates revenue. I mean, that's essentially what Berkshire Hathaway is, right? It's
Right. Or
just a big
Kathy Wood has very popularized that with ARK, right? She's like the new, high profile hedge fund manager. Basically, you just buy ARK, right? Buy her fund, and she's investing money for you, right? It's like, so,
right.
I mean, it's the same kind of thing. But again, to them, it's just like I think if Kathy Wood's here, she's just talking about, I have this great fund. Here's the stock sign. Here's my investment thesis. Don't you want to do it? And then she shows her previous returns, which are all publicly accessible. And you're like, you can decide yes or no. Sequoia, it's like this long written out process about how they got there. It's like, why don't you just start a fund? And like, if it does well, we'll put money into it. If not, we'll move on. Like, make it easy.
All right. Now that we've gotten you and you're seasoned stewing, sous vide Brandon State here. Let's just briefly touch on what's up. What's going on with Facebook, Brandon? I've dipped in and out of like there's a bunch of records that people released. Is something going to happen with this? Is like are they doing? I know they had some embarrassing like open enrollment video, which is fine. I mean,
We've all been there.
Yeah, we all have embarrassing.
Actually, I felt that the most relatable moment for Facebook. Actually, in all the times I've used Facebook, I've never related more to the Facebook, just Facebook in general, than I did to the open enrollment video. I'm like, I've been here. Like people are making fun of this, but I'm like, I've seen worse. I've seen funnier. But I feel like I was like, oh, I get it. They're like normal people too. They're getting the same videos.
So have you picked through the summaries of what's in this treasure trove?
I mean, to some degree, I think. I don't know if I have a ton to add here beyond what's been written in like, every paper ever. I think obviously, very questionable choices around many of their decisions, around how they sort of manipulate the feed, if you will. But I do think, kind of like picking up on the last topic here, is like, it's well reported that Facebook is planning, or at least considering, to rebrand itself in its new name. And I think it's kind of like, it's a similar question about Sequoia, right? It's like, I get why they would want to do it, but like, if rebranding yourself and launching it, I think the idea is that they're going to do it something around like the metaverse, like maybe it'd be called Meta or something along that. And it's like, in the end, it's like, why, when you do this, and that would be a huge effort for a company like Facebook, much like Alphabet, and Google did that. It's just sort of like, I guess I just think to myself, like, I don't think you're really solving any of the problems, but like, maybe if you wanted to speak about it more positively, would be, maybe you're just rebranding for your employees, right? Because like all of us are never going to stop saying Facebook. We're always just going to say, oh, we use Facebook. We're never going to, we never say like Alphabet it. Like no one's like, go Alphabet it. People say Google it, right? There's just no no one thinks Alphabet. And I think, so I don't know. I guess I was just thinking to myself, like, if you ran Facebook and you were in all of these issues and you wanted to like move your company beyond potentially just the Facebook social media as you know it, like, would you is renaming it? I mean, I can see why you would do it, but it doesn't seem like at the end of the day, other than maybe reorienting the company internally, it wouldn't have any real public change. Like no mindset about the company would change. And I think that's just like to your thing about, you said systems management companies, eventually they just, I don't know, I think you said they just die. And it's like, and I feel like, maybe that's just what Facebook is grappling with. It's like Facebook's fortunes are tied to Facebook. Like Alphabet's fortunes are tied to Google, right? And it's like, you can change the names, you can move it around, but the bulk of the revenue and where the awareness of the company come from these core value propositions. And it's like, that's just how it is. Like, you may not like that. Even if you are super rich and worth billions of dollars and running the company, you may want to do other stuff, but your fortunes are tied to this core business. So I just think that's kind of, as it goes forward, I don't, I don't know if Zuckerberg, I don't know if they can you fight this off, to your point? I guess maybe Microsoft did it. Maybe their fortunes changed from the operating system to Azure, but that happened over like a period of 20 years. And so like in like 20 years, is this the moment? Like, will we look back and be like, oh, Facebook remade itself and they renamed the company Meta or something like that? So I'm really curious to watch it. And I think this is a hard problem. I don't know. If I was running Facebook, it'd be, I'm not sure what I would do. Like, it isn't like, I don't sit here and be like, oh, I have any good answers. I'm like, you seem like you're in a tough spot. Like it feels more like a MySpace situation than it feels like a Microsoft situation, but who knows? We'll see what happens.
Yeah. And it's even worse than MySpace because as you like to remind me when I talk about how much money companies make, like all of everything is priced into their stock price. So like any changes that Facebook makes for the better probably is not cool for the balance sheet, right? Like, I mean, it seems like a lot of these tech companies, a lot of their value is in like finding flaws in the current system that they can go in and exploit. And so it's everyone else is restricted from doing that stuff, and they figure out a way to do that. And then once you go in and regulate what these holes are, it just removes their ability to extract value. Like, Uber being the example, like for whatever year run they had, they just didn't have to deal with like local licensing and taxis and stuff for like taxis. And then at some point, the world was like, oh, right, you're just a taxi service. So you got to pay that now, right?
Yeah,
and like
that's right. On to the next thing.
Yeah. Anyhow, well, do we have any bureaucracy this week?
Just a couple things. One, I want to just call out a shout out to Chris here. I sent him some stickers. He's in Gaithersburg, Maryland, a place I'm very familiar with. So good to see some people from the Mid Atlantic representing. And if you'd like a sticker like Chris, all you have to do is send me your postal address at stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com, and I will send you a sticker anywhere in the world. And also, Jordy posted a job in the Slack. So if you want to go find more about that, you can join the Slack. You can go in the jobs channel. I think this job is for I think it's cypress.io, and so you can learn all about it. So go check out the jobs channel if you're looking for something new to do.
Well, there's a few conferences. I'm actually speaking week after next, November 11th. At I've never spoken at a conference in Russia, but it's called DevOps.
Wow.
DevOOPS. I'll be
All
doing it
right.
online, so I won't be traveling there. But I have a talk that I have yet to put together yet called Kubernetes is not for developers. It's just,
Oh.
it's a clickbaity headline. But
Yeah.
I just want to like go over my my constant wondering. As I say in the abstract, it's just a theory. I want to see if it's true or not. And so that's on November 8th. And if you go to DevOops, that's with two O's, .ru, you can see that listed there. There's also the MongoDB local thing coming up November 9th in London. And also that conference is January 17th and 20th. And if usually what we do now, Brandon, is recommendations. Do you have one for this week?
I do. I've got a good one this week. I mean, I think it's not new or anything, but I watched the new Dune. I watched it on HBO Max. All in, loved it. I thought it was fantastic. So, highly recommend it. I do think if you're in a place where going to theaters is appropriate, like is nice and safe, probably it is the kind of movie to go see in the theater. And I will also say, I guess for myself, it's kind of the Star Wars sequel we always wanted, or at least I always wanted. So obviously, they're different books, of course, but Star Wars, as I understand it, was heavily influenced by Dune. And it's like, yeah, this is actually I guess for where I am in my life, age and all the things like that, I found it like, oh, this is great. This is exactly the kind of new way to tell this story that I've heard before. So I loved it. I don't know. I was someone that had not read the books, tried a couple times and gave up. But I do think now now I get it. Now I'm like, I see why people love the story so much. And like, it was visually incredible to watch. I think the plot, a lot of people think, it is confusing and stuff like that, but I don't know. You're either someone that likes that or you don't. So I loved it. I'll just give you the other side of it. I watched it once and then my wife was like, there's nothing on. What should we watch? I'm like, oh, yeah, let's watch this new Dune. And so she watched it for I would say 3.5 minutes. And she's like, no, not my movie. Turned it off. And I just couldn't believe it. I was in disbelief. So you probably know where you fall on that spectrum. Like, are you, you're either in on kind of like complicated, dark, a lot of action movie, or you're just like, that's not my thing. But I loved it. I highly recommend it. I don't know. Maybe we'll have to do a full Dune podcast one day. Where we can just we'll make this a movie podcast. So I don't know, Cote. I don't know if you seem like someone that maybe would have read the books and you're like a liberal arts kind of well-read person.
Yeah, that was from that period in my life in my teens and my 20s where I could just like tear through a book and I would not be present while I was reading. Like I remember reading so many books, and as I was reading it, I would be like, I have no idea what's happening. I wasn't paying attention. Like I don't have that nowadays. Like I have quite the opposite problem. But it is I don't know. It was fun. Well, my recommendation, speaking of books, now this is going to be a bit of a visual, but while I was on vacation, sometimes you browse the internet for fun, and I thought what I need a book that goes over the complete works of Peter Bruegel the Elder, which you may have confused with Bosch. Everyone knows Boschian pictures, but Bruegel is very similar, and so I ordered this. It's hard to hold up. It's one of these Taschen books. You can see.
Wow, Cote's holding up like something that's like bigger than the Oxford English Dictionary. I mean, it's big. It's like half his torso is this book. I don't know. We'll have to send me a picture, Cote. We'll have to put that in there to give it justice.
This book delivers because it not only has the paintings, as you can see.
My gosh,
I enjoy the paintings, right? But Bruegel actually spent most of his commercial life a lot more on etchings and illustrations that ran out of Antwerp. So he's got there's a lot more drawings that he has. And these are ones that you won't see mostly because they're boring as fuck. just some
Wow.
Bruegel draws ships. So
Okay, for
it's
everyone,
Chuck.
check the
Chuck.
show notes. I'll try to put a picture of you have to see the size of this book. I also think this is a good example of software defined talk. Like, probably Dune has been recommended on 400 million podcasts this week, and I'm going to go on a limb. No one has ever recommended this book. Cote just showed me
The complete works of Bruegel. Come on.
So we are really, I mean, the extremes of maybe the most popular recommendation has ever been given, followed by, if this isn't the most obscure, I don't know what is. I mean, you're into like a new level.
I forgot. You know how you get
the fact that like it's not like you just know about the book, you own it. That book had to be $100. I mean, that thing is massive.
Yeah. And you know how when you get a monitor, it's got that cool box with a handle that comes with it. This book also comes with a box that has a handle.
The book came with a carrying case. Unbelievable. That is unbelievable. All right. Well, make sure to look at some. I'll put some pictures on Instagram too. Like this is going to require more, several photos so you can truly see it. So, I'm going to try it, Cote. I'm going to check that book out. I've never even heard of it. Never even knew that it existed.
You got to shop around, because on Germany Amazon it was like 190 euros. But on Bol.com, the Amazon of the Netherlands, it was only 90 euros.
Probably, so. I'm just going to go out. I was with my son. We got him a book at Barnes & Noble the other day, and it's like, I'm pretty sure this is not going to be available there. I'm pretty sure they're not going to have this in stock. That's a special order.
Yeah. See if Matt Ray will just check it out from the Austin Library and listen to the audio version of it for free. All right. Well, as always, this has been Software Defined Talk. If you want to get the show notes for this episode, you can go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/326. And you should join us in the Slack channel. You can go to softwaredefinedtalk.com and click on Slack up there, and all sorts of stuff every day going on there. And we'll see everyone next time. Bye-bye.
All right. Well, make sure to put a link in that to the plug in the.
Do you need me to send you some
the show
pictures?
notes? Send me a couple pictures of it, or at least I'll try to get some online. That's crazy, man. That's crazy. That's like the most liberal arts thing I've ever seen. I mean, you've gone the full Dutch at this point. I'm like, wow. Like here I am watching like American football and Dune, and you're like, have you seen this book? It's no, I have not seen that. I've not seen that at all.
Even better. I've recommended this a couple of times, but there's a book that's kind of a memoir of this guy who wants to go see all the Bruegel paintings, and I've listened to it twice now. So that's that's anyhow.
Wow. You are the book. Epitome of cultured. You are. You definitely are. So, all right. I have to run to a meeting, so I'll get this all posted, and we'll record next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.